later on. What's the issue? You know what I mean?
I think like in this case,
Yeah.
I think her issue is like more scientific. She's like, oh, how do you explain this scientifically? Like if you just put a pair of every animal,
Yeah.
and where did he find all the pair of every animal in that localized region or whatever you're saying?
Yeah.
So from a
But again,
scientific
the point goes to, if a person agrees that God is real
yeah,
and Noah is the prophet of God,
yeah,
then the question is defunct, illogical, makes no sense whatsoever, because the one guiding Noah
Yeah.
is the one who has knowledge of all the creation and has knowledge of all things.
Yeah.
So of course he would know which species to put in the ark. Of
Yeah.
course he would know which creatures to take into the ark.
Yeah.
Of course he would know how to facilitate that,
Yeah.
because the consequences is something that comes from him. So the question is like it's misunderstanding, or it's trying to ignore the fact or the presumption that there is a God. Noah is a prophet of God. God is all powerful and all knowing, and this is a consequence of the act of somebody all powerful and all knowing. Do you see?
Yeah. Yeah, like, for example, in my case,
Yeah.
I just don't want to say, oh, this is what we believe in. I
No,
like
no,
to
no,
rationalize.
but
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If the person believes in God
Yeah.
and in prophets
Yeah.
and believes God is all knowing, all powerful, etc.,
Yeah,
etc., then this, I don't understand why the story would not make sense unless they have an issue with Noah being a prophet of God. So that would mean that Noah's not getting knowledge from God.
Yeah.
Then that would mean that, do you see, it
Yeah,
just
yeah,
opens
yeah.
up a can of
Yeah,
worms. So
can of worms,
yeah,
yeah.
it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does this individual believe in God?
No, she doesn't.
So then the conversation needs to go at the beginning to evidence and prove that there is a God.
Yeah.
And that's where all the brothers that have experienced the Dawah, they say the first question, people can bring up questions that are periphery points,
Yeah.
which eventually will boil down to if God exists or not. So
Yeah.
why not just deal with that right at the
Yeah.
beginning? So
Yeah.
with this individual, that's where the crux and the conversation needs to be. Belief in God and evidence if God exists or not.
This individual, like she's a very old friend, and she's atheist. And but if someone says anything about Islam,
Yeah.
she will be the first one to defend it. She's like, oh no,
Okay,
my friend is Muslim. Like she even argues with random people. It's like, no, why are you saying this? Like he's nice. So I've been having these kind of conversations with her for like ages, and obviously I've tried the argument of infinite regression.
What's her response to that? Does she believe in infinite regression?
Yeah, so she's like, oh, I don't know. So because I'm not like I'm a bit of I don't like saying I'm a scientist, but I am knowledgeable in terms of the physics and stuff. So I have
So one aspect of infinite regress, an argument that you can make is infinity by definition is you can't add to infinity, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So if we are constantly moving,
Yeah.
our movements, they are adding.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if there's an infinite, our movements are adding to infinity. So then it's not infinity.
Yeah.
Do you see?
Yeah.
Because you can't add to infinity.
Yeah.
So that is one of the classical arguments to refute this notion of infinite regress. Yeah. And how can you even evidence and prove an infinite regress?
Yeah.
It's not something that necessarily even the concept of infinity only exists as a concept within
Infinity.
mathematics.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist in real life.
Yeah.
So when they say I don't know, then you say okay, then bearing these evidences and these points that I've mentioned, then what is the inference to the best explanation? What's the most probabilistic and logical answer? Because that's what we go with nowadays, isn't it? Anything that we have, we go with the probability. Yeah, we go with that sort of stuff. You okay? You okay? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't think you're ready for me,
Whenever
mate.
you're ready.
I don't think you're ready for
Whenever
me.
you're ready.
Trust me.
You can start talking.
Trust me, you're not ready for me.
Whenever you're ready.
Trust me.
I missed the
I was looking, you see, like I'm trying, but he's asking for it. If he wants some, I'll give it to him. Yeah. So so infinite regress. Those are the points, because even when it comes to everything else, like if you're saying she's a woman of science, right?
I mean, not exactly, but she believes more in science rather than theology.
Okay.
And anything like, for example, say, I believe like this God, and she's like, okay, I don't know what's gonna happen, whether to die, and maybe you are right, and maybe you're like, oh, there is nothing, I'll just die and go back and become stardust, blah blah blah, stuff like that.
But then the probability, even though I don't really like using this argument, but I think it still should be put out there. There's something called Pascal's wager.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
so
know,
according
yeah.
to Pascal's wager, I mean, we're in a better position than atheists.
Yeah,
I mean, what happens if we're wrong? Nothing.
Yeah.
What happens if they're wrong? Everything.
this is actually the same argument I made,
Yeah.
including Pascal's wager, and she's like, yeah, but there's so many gods. I'm like, yeah, but again,
Well, there's so many shampoos, but she
Exactly.
doesn't use 20 different shampoos when she
Exactly.
has a shower.
Yeah.
She coalesces her decision to one particular shampoo
Yeah.
based upon her understanding of her senses, using her faculties of reasoning,
Yeah.
logic, and all of that sort of stuff, and she
Yeah.
takes it down to one shampoo that she will eventually use in the shower. She might buy 2, 3, but eventually she's going to use one shampoo. Do you
Yeah.
see?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Even when she's on Netflix, she's not going to multitask and watch 3 drama series in one go,
Yeah.
like channel 1, 2, and 3 simultaneously.
Yeah.
She's going to watch one drama at a time, one movie at a time. So similarly over here, why are people so intellectually lazy when it comes to religion? They say, there's so many religions. Yeah, there's so many religions. I'll just sit down and just have my egg sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, come on, we got to be a bit reasonable. Just like you use your akal and your rationality and your logic with it when it comes to other things. Sure, you can use a bit of that over here.
Yeah,
I'm not saying exhaust the whole thing over here, but if somebody tells you that tree is God, you're going to say, that doesn't make logical sense. Or that human being walking over there, he's God. That's going to make sense. Oh, we believe God is outside of time and space. He's the creator of all things. He is singular. He is not plural. He does not beget nor is he begotten. There's none like him. Oh, that makes logical sense. Well, there you go. That's Islam.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think with her case, she's a bit stubborn as well, because I think,
No problem. But also with these argumentations,
yeah,
you do them in a confident manner,
Yeah.
and alongside them, you embody and you show Islam through your actions and your
Yes,
amal,
yes.
and don't underestimate dua as well.
Yeah,
Dua is supplication when you're asking Allah and you're putting your weapons, your atyar, you're saying that, you know what, I'm weak, I'm nothing, guidance comes from you. Yeah, and you'd be surprised sometimes your argumentation will be 50-50, but because guidance is meant for that person, that 50-50 will still be a means of them accepting Islam. Sometimes we give the best arguments that we think in our understanding, but the person still is as solid as a rock.
Yeah.
So honestly, bro, guidance comes from Allah. Don't underestimate the spiritual aspect of da'wah as well, which is dua. And there's one, you know him as well, Sheikh Jihani, he makes this point as well. And he says that, when it comes to da'wah, he says 5%. 95% is tahajjud and crying. Like that beej, that seed, that's that 5%. 95% is me crying after doing tahajjud and watering that seed. And this is the thing a lot of people don't understand. And they think it's in my argumentation, it's in my logic, my rationale, me. No, I've seen people, even the individual that I mentioned to him, sometimes I've seen him do very rudimentary dawah. Yeah, very simple, not contingency argument and deductive reasoning and induction and all of that. Yeah, it's very simple. Yeah, and subhanallah, the person accepts Islam. Like one story I heard of him, he went to Lidl to get some milk, and he came back. He said, "I got some milk," and the cashier accepted Islam as well. So. You know what, bro, honestly, as I'm saying this to you, it's a reminder for myself as well. Because unfortunately, we fall into these things as well. There's a saying, do your best, Allah will do the rest. We focus a lot on the things that we have. And we ignore the intervention and the influence and the power and the control also of Allah as well. So I'm sure. And you know what, bro? The more she sees what's going on in the reality, when people don't know if they're a man or a woman or a pogo stick or a toenail, people are confused about these things. I'm telling you, bro, like she's eventually going to be like, you know what? The only thing that does make sense, that's consistent, that's persistent, that's got a scripture that is preserved, that I can access, people that are following the faith. At the end of the day, let's be honest, it's Islam.
Again, this is another interesting point that I had with her, because I was mentioning how Quran has been preserved for more than 1,000 years, 1,400 years.
Yes.
And you can date it back to the Birmingham manuscript.
Yes.
Yeah. So I said the Quran has not changed, and there's a reason it has not changed, because whatever we have is going to continue until the end. And she's like, oh, but how can we live in a society where, because society keeps changing, every time, right? And we need to adjust to the ways of the society. I was
Yes.
like, oh, this is, I think, what makes us unique. That whatever our morality is objective, and whatever we believe in, it's not going to change because society is changing, right? We may have to adjust in some ways, but not against the religion. Whatever our religion says, we have to follow.
Yeah, so the adjust, just in case for the people that are watching, this adjusting is part of a principle called ijtihad.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have mujtahids and we have fiqh also, yeah, which is jurisprudence, where there are certain principles in place that have enough, I would say, flexibility within a certain plus and a minus. Yeah, like, you know, sometimes they, even with speeding, they say, oh, there's a plus 10% sort of thing,
of course,
leeway.
Yeah.
So Islam, we have fiqh, and we have muftis, and we have rulings which can be extracted via ijtihad. And that process, again, is an evidence for Islam that it is relevant. It is truly from God, the fact that it can cater for different times via this process.
Yes.
Do you see? So Christians don't have the process called ijtihad and fiqh and stuff like this. They don't even have necessarily a chain of narration to their earliest church fathers like Ignatius and Justin Martyr and the likes. We do, whether it's Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, nay, even the companions when it comes to the chains of narration of the hadith. Do you see? Like, we have solid institutions and methodologies that are in place.
And I think one of the things that I mentioned to her as well, I was like, I don't know if I should say it on camera, I don't know. I was like, oh, Islam is the easiest religion to dismantle, because anything that you can prove wrong from the Quran, the religion is easily dismantled. But for 1400 years, no one has yet done it. So obviously the book itself,
so what you're referring to is that the Quran puts out an open challenge
yes,
that then invites people to be able to kind of try and falsify it.
Yeah.
So the challenge is open to all.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, you're absolutely right. Anyone can come and they can attempt to falsify it, but the Quran has, of course, stood true and will stand true because of it having come from God.
Yeah. And I gave the example of Abu Lahab as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
The prophecy of Abu Lahab?
Yeah, like I think that Abu Lahab will never accept Islam.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Simple prophecy.
Yeah. I'm not very knowledgeable, but I try. Yeah.
Bro, that's what it is. Even if you're not knowledgeable, but you have access to this person, you can watch the stuff of the brothers doing da'wah and stuff like this, and you can learn and then approach that person. Or take them, of course, to a knowledgeable person, because obviously we don't have access to them.
Of course,
so, alhamdulillah, we're all connected and everyone has a part to play in the da'wah. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you very much for your
My pleasure, brother. Take it easy. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
What you are holding, I will hold you back.
Where's the guy that offered the challenge? He was heckling, bro.
You are here not to watch
Sorry?
You see this guy all the time.
It's,
That's why you didn't chase after him.
you know what it is? I had a conversation with him last time. Bro, just hold these, please. I had a conversation. I had a conversation with him last time. Just move it.
No, I'm just.
Oh yeah. He picks it up. You have to take the mic.